Kevin Warsh, the president went on Truth Social this morning, made it official that Warsh will be announced. It'll probably be an event at the White House around 11, I'm told, but it could slip. But the president has an event currently on his schedule at 11, but this could become that event. Mr. Warsh is extremely popular with lots of people. Okay, lots of people are delighted by this. Condoleezza Rice on X, very favorable statement. I've been getting emails all morning from people I know who I didn't even know knew Kevin Warsh, saying he was my intern. He's a great guy. We love Kevin Warsh. Okay. CNBC this morning, here, Joe and Becky, here was their reaction to the selection.
I could argue a lot of different ways with Kevin Warsh. I would think long term he'd be really good for the stock market, but short term we know what these traders like a lot of times, and he is a hawk. You can dress up a hawk like a dove, maybe to get the job a little bit, and he's been a big critic of the Fed and calling for regime change. And
Kevin Warsh has experience at the Federal Reserve. He was there, I think, from 2006 maybe to 2011. He's got a lot of experience on Wall Street. He's been working with Stan Druckenmiller at Duquesne ever since, ever since he left the Fed. And again, the idea of hoping that inflation doesn't get out of play. It may not feed into the president's immediate desire for affordability, but if inflation goes up, everybody will.
And I'm gratified that he's picking Warsh at this point. It shows that when push comes to shove, and you can, what was it? Was it said that Churchill said, he was talking about the United States, we try everything else, and then we finally come to the right decision after we've tried everything else. But I think it's gratifying that President Trump probably knows sometimes, the castor oil or whatever it is that you got to take to make things better, it's not always pleasant. It's not always...
Can I just add to this? There was a little bit of force. We still don't know if even Kevin Warsh would be confirmed by the Senate.
So there's all sorts of elements to this story. We always try to be forward-looking here, but there are some backward things we're going to talk about that speak to the president's decision-making, to speak to what kind of Fed chair Warsh will be if he is confirmed. I said lots of people like him, okay? His father-in-law, for instance, likes him quite a bit and is a friend of the president's. And he has many friends, many people, including, I believe, David Bahnsen, thinks of all the people who are considered Warsh as the best choice. But there are people in my life, in finance, who think he was the worst choice. And my bro chat group, my business bro chat group, they think this is a disaster. They look at what happened overnight in world markets and they say the reason it's not down even more is because there's stuff happening like the deal over ICE that are buoying markets because there won't be a shutdown probably. So with that prelude and with, I have a million more things to say about this. David Bahnsen of the Bahnsen Group, our friend, and he and I have been in colloquy about the Fed pick for quite some time. This is a pick the president could have made 3 months ago when he said he wanted to make a pick. Warsh was on the table. David, is this the right pick for the president? Is it the right pick for the country? Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. I believe on both counts it is. I'm disappointed you showed all the CNBC footage and didn't show their first guest this morning, who was there to talk about Kevin Warsh. But what I said on Joe and Becky's show, I'll say to you all, is, first of all, my advocacy of Kevin Warsh is based on him being a candidate. If I had a magic wand and could make a list out of anything I wanted, I can think of a few people that were never going to be candidates that I may have liked. But I know who the serious candidates were. And Warsh is, to me, far and away the most qualified, the most credible. And we have to remember this term is longer than President Trump's presidential term. So there's not only the immediate short-term aspects, but longer term. I believe somebody who has the intellectual gravitas he had to point out so presciently what the downside to quantitative easing, to QE, to the fact that in our adult lifetimes, we have watched the Fed's balance sheet go up by $7 trillion, and that could not be done without trade-offs. Warsh, there's another former Fed governor, Tom Honig, who used to call it out too. But other than that, they're the only ones. I respect Kevin a great deal. He was the economist at Morgan Stanley when I was managing director there for years. I do not believe that the markets have any problem with Kevin whatsoever. I don't believe there's any serious person saying that markets are going to respond negatively to Kevin Warsh. I think it's almost a laughable idea.
Okay, this is a
With a
great
10-year bond
yeah.
yield up 2
Yeah.
basis points.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Larry for questions. I'll just say, David, with respect, I respect you. Of course, I have serious people in my life who have said when Warsh's name was floated to the top of the rumor mill earlier in the process, they say markets took a hit, and they say in their world, traders and all sorts of people in finance, he's the worst possible pick. They just think he's got no credibility. They don't think he's going to do what needs to be done in the job. I'm just telling you. I'm not going to compare their seriousness as people to yours, but they're serious people. So as a layperson, I'm just a little confused. But Larry's colloquy with you will clear this up. Larry.
Will it? Well, I'm interested in what I'm seeing from the crypto bros on social media. Apparently, and I don't know this firsthand, maybe you do, he's really open to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which is not necessarily what we've seen from the Fed up until now. Do you think that could have been a factor in this decision, and how will it affect how he does his job?
I don't think so. I do know what you're referring to. And I don't say this as a dig on Kevin. I say it as a pragmatic comment about the moment. I think that people who have campaigned for this job have had to take a certain posture that would enable them to get the job. Bitcoin's down over $1,000 this morning. Bitcoin is almost 95% correlation to tech stocks. And that is the entirety of what's going on now. You have Apple, Amazon down this morning. Microsoft was down 10% yesterday. Bitcoin is more correlated to speculative side. There's not much Kevin or the Fed, period, could do to benefit that aspect. I think, Larry, your question is more, will the Fed take a posture that has a more regulatory friendly environment with crypto? But I don't think that there's been anything hostile done to crypto all year, and it's down 30% over the last several months. So the administration has a favorable viewpoint there. But no, I think that Kevin's view has more to do with what the Fed's role in the economy is. When he talks about structural reform, he's not talking about this ridiculous stuff about the cost overruns on a building. He's talking about the fact that the Fed has taken a posture where they become a liquidity provider too quickly. And I think that that's the most important element long-term for structural benefits to Fed. Where that will fit into crypto and so forth, I think it's tough to say.
Kevin.
David, can you take us into the final weeks of this decision making? Again, Mark said, his name was floated 4 or 5 months ago. Stock market took a little bit of a hit, but it seemed like in the last 2 weeks, he really skyrocketed to the front of the line from a pressure campaign. I wonder how much you have insight into Scott Bessent's role in this too. Obviously, they have a shared connection with Druckenmiller, as a protege. They're both of him. So I wonder how much this pressure campaign inside and outside of the administration actually sealed the deal for Kevin.
There's some stuff I do know that I shouldn't say regarding the secretary's involvement, but there's some stuff that
it's just the 4 of us on two-way. So just share whatever insight you have.
That's right. Look, what I will say is that I believe it's public knowledge that Secretary Bessent did not want to be the person who made the call, that it was important to him to set this up in a way that the president owned the pick. And my own opinion is that the president has been a little unfair to Secretary Mnuchin about the pick of Jerome Powell, that the President Trump made that pick and then regretted it, and everyone's allowed to regret a pick they make. But to put the blame on the former Treasury Secretary, I think, is Monday morning quarterbacking. And I think that Secretary Bessent has done this in a way that President Trump owns this pick, and I think President Trump's going to be happy he owns this pick. My own personal opinion, I don't know that Mark will agree with me, but I feel very strongly about this for a variety of reasons. I think it is laughable that Rick Reeder was ever discussed as a serious candidate. I think that there was no point at which markets sold off of the idea of Kevin Warsh. He wasn't even the first place candidate in prediction markets until the day that, which is only a few weeks ago, that President Trump said Kevin Hassett needs to stay at NEC. The sequence of events as to President Trump saying in 2020, I should have picked you, Kevin, when he picked Powell, and then, the idea that he could have done a shadow Fed earlier. I just don't think I agree with my favorite political prognosticator and friend, Mark, that President Trump passed him up. I believe that what he did was pass up the strategy of having a shadow Fed, that he thought that was going to end up being problematic. And I think he made the right decision. And I do think Secretary Bessent was a part of that as well. But no, look, Secretary Bessent did not pressure the president to pick Kevin Warsh. But I do think he has done this in a way that it allowed President Trump to make that pick on his own.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.